Hello, I'm Melanie. I'm 43, from a small town outside of Boston. What I'm about to share isn't easy, but it's my truth, how a single moment of humiliation became the turning point of my life. I hope it inspires you. My hands shook uncontrollably as tears blurred the laptop screen, my daughter's cutting laughter slicing deeper than any knife ever could. "Mom, you're a pathetic cute type like a grandma with arthritis," Jessica had sneered, recording my hunt and peck typing for her friends to mock online, leaving me crumpled in shame as the bedroom door slammed shut. That night, after crying silently into my pillow so my daughter wouldn't hear, I made a vow through my tears I would transform this crushing moment into fuel for a journey that would see me, a high school dropout and struggling single mother, build WriteRight, a copywriting empire whose profits now secretly pay every dollar of my daughter's Ivy League education, while she still believes she's attending on a scholarship that I could never have provided. Will my daughter ever learn who really funds her education, and what will happen when she discovers the truth? If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel, and share your own experiences of turning pain into purpose in the comments below. That wasn't the first time my daughter had made me feel small, but it was the one that finally broke me. I'd spent 17 years trying to give Jessica everything I never had, and somehow, I'd raised a child who looked at me with contempt. Maybe I deserved it. After all, what kind of example was I? A high school dropout who couldn't even type properly. In the digital age. The rejection letter from the office administrator position still sat on our kitchen counter, my third rejection that month. Each one contained the same polite dismissal. "We've selected candidates whose qualifications better match our requirements." Translation: "We found someone who finished high school and can use a computer." I tucked the letter into the trash and began preparing dinner: mac and cheese. Jessica's favorite as a child, though now she'd probably criticize that too. "Empty carbs, Mom, seriously." As the water boiled, my mind drifted back to when everything changed. 17, pregnant, and suddenly alone when Tyler, Jessica's father, decided fatherhood wasn't in his 5-year plan. My parents gave me an ultimatum: or get out. I chose my baby. Those early years were a blur of diapers, night shifts, and exhaustion. Working as a waitress, then a hotel cleaner, later back to waitressing when the tips were better. Moving from cramped apartment to cramped apartment, always one emergency away from disaster. But Jessica, she was brilliant from the start. Reading before kindergarten, skipping second grade, bringing home perfect report cards. I worked extra shifts to buy her the good school supplies, the calculator for advanced math, the laptop for research projects. I wanted her to have every chance I'd thrown away. What I couldn't give her was what she wanted most: normal life, a respectable mother. I saw it in her eyes when I showed up at school functions in my waitress uniform, smelling like fryer oil. I heard it in her voice when friends came over and she vaguely described my job in hospitality. My phone buzzed with a text from Dennis: "Could I cover Sheila's shift tomorrow?" I texted back yes, even though it meant working a double. We needed the money, especially with Jessica's college applications looming. Her guidance counselor said she had a shot at prestigious schools, maybe even scholarships, but they wouldn't cover everything. From her bedroom, I could hear Jessica on a video call with friends, her voice animated in a way it never was with me. I heard my name and paused. My mom: "No, she doesn't get it. She keeps saying college will give me opportunities, but she doesn't even know what opportunities look like." The words stung, but I couldn't argue with them. What did I know about professional success? About building a career? The only thing I'd successfully built was this fragile life that kept us fed and housed, but just barely. I hadn't told Jessica about the most recent setback, the literacy assessment. I'd failed at the community college. I'd finally worked up the courage to inquire about GED classes, only to discover my reading comprehension and writing skills were stuck at a 9th grade level. The counselor had been kind but clear. I'd need remedial courses before even beginning GED preparation. The water boiled over, snapping me back to the present. As I cleaned up the mess, I caught my reflection in the microwave door: tired eyes, premature lines from years of stress, hair hastily pulled back because I couldn't afford the time or money for a proper cut. Jessica emerged from her room long enough to grab dinner and retreat again, barely acknowledging me. Once, she'd looked at me like I hung the moon. When had that changed? When had I become someone she pitied, then resented, and now mocked? I didn't have answers, just the gnawing certainty that something had to change. I just didn't know what or how. All I knew was that I couldn't fall any further. This was rock bottom, and maybe, just maybe, that meant the only way left was up. 2 days after Jessica's mockery, I found myself lingering in the public library after dropping off some overdue books. I'd always loved libraries, quiet, judgment-free spaces where nobody cared if you had money or status. Just being surrounded by books made me feel like opportunities were within reach, even if I couldn't quite grasp them yet. A flyer on the community board caught my eye. Free computer skills classes begin. Welcome. Sessions every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. I checked my schedule mentally. If I took the early breakfast shift at Denny's, I could potentially make the Thursday classes. But what about Jessica? She'd just laugh if she knew. Are you interested in the computer course? I turned to find an older woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes watching me. Her name tag read Eleanor, head librarian. I don't know, I stammered. I'm not very good with technology. That's precisely why we offer the class, she said with a warm smile. I've taught people in their 80s to use email. I'm sure you'll do just fine. My schedule is complicated. I work multiple jobs. We also have self-paced materials you can use anytime the library's open. She led me to a shelf of instruction books. And I'm usually here if you have questions. I picked up Typing for Beginners and flipped through it. The exercises looked manageable, but Jessica's mocking voice echoed in my head, pathetic, like a grandma with arthritis. Thank you, I said, replacing the book. I'll think about it. But walking home, something shifted inside me. The humiliation of that night with Jessica burned fresh in my memory. What if, instead of hiding from that shame, I used it? What if I channeled it into determination? The next morning, I woke at 4:30 a.m., a full hour before my alarm. In the quiet darkness, I made a decision. I dressed silently, wrote Jessica a note saying I'd picked up an early shift, and walked to the library. It wouldn't open until 9. But there was a 24-hour diner across the street. I ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu, and pulled out a library book on typing fundamentals I'd impulsively checked out yesterday. By the time the library opened, I'd read the first 3 chapters. Eleanor seemed surprised but pleased to see me waiting at the door. She set me up at a computer in a quiet corner. Start with this program, she said, opening a typing tutorial. Take your time. No one's watching or judging, except me. I was judging every fumbling keystroke, every backspace, every moment my fingers hovered uncertainly. But I kept going, following the exercises methodically. Home row, the quick brown fox, slowly building muscle memory. I practiced for an hour before heading to my lunch shift at the diner. The next morning, I was back at 9 a.m. sharp, and the next, I created a routine early mornings at the library, work home to make dinner for Jessica, then practicing finger positions on a paper keyboard I'd drawn after Jessica went to bed. My daughter noticed my early departures after about a week. Why are you leaving so early? She asked over breakfast, eyes narrowed with suspicion. Extra shifts, I lied. Saving up for your college applications. She rolled her eyes. Community college doesn't cost that much, Mom. The casual assumption that community college was my only expectation for her stung, but I bit my tongue. Let her think what she wanted. I had a secret now, a purpose. Eleanor became my cheerleader, greeting me with genuine enthusiasm each morning. You're making remarkable progress, Melanie, she said after 3 weeks. Your speed has already doubled. I blushed with pride but quickly tamped it down. I'm still too slow for any real job. Nonsense. Many offices would be thrilled with your current speed. And you're just getting started. After 6 weeks, I completed the basic typing course with a modest 35 words per minute, not impressive by professional standards, but miraculous for someone who'd been hunt-and-pecking a month earlier. What's next? Eleanor asked as she presented me with my certificate of completion. I hesitated, then said the words I'd been afraid to voice. I want to learn more. Everything. Word processing, spreadsheets, email, all of it. Eleanor smiled. Then that's exactly what we'll do. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar taking root inside me. Hope, after everyone was asleep. That's when the real Melanie emerged. I waited until Jessica's light was out, then quietly retrieved a worn composition notebook from its hiding place behind the loose baseboard in my closet. It joined 5 identical notebooks, each filled cover to cover with my handwriting. These were my secret journals, not daily accounts of mundane activities, but stories, poems, and observations I'd been writing since I was 14. No one knew about them. Not my parents, not Jessica, not a single person in my life. Writing had always been my escape, my hidden talent. Words flowed from me, in a way nothing else did, creating worlds and characters more vivid than my own reality. I'd once dreamed of becoming a writer. Before pregnancy and survival consumed my life, I opened to a fresh page and began to write about my day, transforming the mundane into something meaningful through carefully chosen words. The frustration of a rude customer became a character sketch. The sunset I'd glimpsed while walking home became a metaphor for resilience. My handwriting was the one thing I'd always been proud of, flowing and elegant, nothing like my awkward typing. On the page, I was articulate, observant, even wise, so different from the fumbling, insecure woman I presented to the world. Ms. Barnes has remarkable aptitude for written expression. My 11th grade English teacher had noted on my last report card before I dropped out, her essays show unusual depth and creativity for her age. That report card had been tucked into my first journal, a bittersweet reminder of potential unfulfilled. Tonight, I wrote about my progress with computers, transforming my small victories into a hero's journey. In my narrative, each keystroke became an act of rebellion against a world that had written me off. That Eleanor had recently introduced me to word processing software, showing me how to type directly into the computer instead of just following keyboard exercises. You can create anything, she'd explained. Letters, resumes, stories, whatever you need. Stories. The word had lingered in my mind all day. After finishing my journal entry, I opened my laptop, a refurbished model Eleanor had helped me purchase through a library program for adult learners. I'd told Jessica it was a loaner for an online training course for work. I opened a blank document and began to type, translating a short story from my journal into digital form. My fingers still stumbled, occasionally, but I was getting faster, more confident. The backspace key was my friend, allowing me to correct mistakes instantly, so different from the crossed outlines and margin notes in my journals. When I finished, I sat back and looked at my work on the screen. Something about seeing my words, in clean, professional-looking type, gave them legitimacy they lacked in my handwritten notebooks. You have a natural way with words, Eleanor had commented last week when she'd helped me draft a cover letter for another job application. Have you ever considered writing professionally? I'd laughed it off then. Professional writing was for people with degrees, connections, credentials, all the things I lacked. But now, looking at my story on the screen, I allowed myself to wonder, could my words have value to someone else? Could they possibly earn money? On impulse, I opened a browser and searched "get paid to write" online. Thousands of results appeared: content sites, blogs looking for contributors, freelance marketplaces, companies seeking copywriters. Most wanted experience or credentials, but some simply required writing samples. I clicked through dozens of listings, reading requirements, rates, expectations. One site caught my attention: Copywriting, a platform where businesses posted small writing projects, product descriptions, blog posts, social media content. Writers could submit work directly, no resume required. Payment was modest but immediate upon approval. I created an account with trembling fingers. The application required a short sample. I polished a paragraph from my story, rewrote it to showcase clear, engaging language, and submitted it before I could lose my nerve. Then, I closed the laptop, tucked away my journals, and crawled into bed, certain nothing would come of it. The next morning, while Jessica was in the shower, I checked my email. Congratulations, your content craft application has been approved. You can now access and submit work to our platform. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. For the first time in years, a door had opened, not through education or connections, or the traditional paths I'd always assumed were closed to me, but through the one thing I'd kept hidden all these years: my words. For 2 weeks, I lurked on Content Craft, reading available assignments, but hesitating to claim any. The tasks seemed simple enough: 200 words about lawn care, product descriptions for handmade jewelry, a blog post about summer vacation ideas. But my confidence wavered. What if I wasn't good enough? What if my writing was rejected? You won't know until you try, Eleanor encouraged, when I confessed my fears during one of our now regular coffee chats. What's the worst that could happen? Rejection, humiliation, confirmation of what I'd always feared, that I wasn't special, that my words had no value. But Eleanor's steady belief in me finally outweighed my self-doubt. That night, after Jessica was asleep, I claimed my first assignment, 5 short descriptions for a local bakery's website, 50 words each. The pay was only $15, but it was a start. I labored over those 250 words as if they were a doctoral thesis, writing and rewriting, checking grammar, reading them aloud to catch awkward phrasing. I transformed chocolate cake into decadent double indulgence with silky ganache frosting. A simple bread became artisanal sourdough with a perfectly crackling crust and tender, airy crumb. At 2 a.m., I finally submitted the work, then lay awake until morning, anxiety churning in my stomach. The acceptance came the next day, along with a bonus of $5 and a note, exactly what we wanted. Beautiful descriptions that make the products irresistible. Would love to work with you again. I stared at the screen, rereading the message until tears blurred my vision. Someone had paid me for my words. Someone thought my writing had value. The $20 payment appeared in my account, a tiny sum that represented something priceless. Validation, possibility, the first brick in a foundation. I was just beginning to imagine. I took on more assignments, building my confidence with each acceptance. Product descriptions, blog posts, website copy. I worked late into the night, after shifts and household chores, careful to keep my new pursuit hidden from Jessica. My ratings on the platform climbed. Clients began to request me specifically. My rates increased incrementally as demand for my work grew. 3 weeks in, I received a direct message from a client named David Chen, owner of Riverstone Landscaping. I've noticed your work on several assignments. Would you be interested in taking on a larger project? I need my entire website rewritten, about 15 pages total. The platform won't allow projects that large, but we could arrange it privately. The message included his email address and an offer that made me gasp. $500 for the project, more than a week's wages at the diner. I immediately searched for his company online. Riverstone Landscaping was legitimate, with a physical location, reviews, and social media presence. Their current website was functional but bland. The text, generic and forgettable. I composed a careful response, professional but enthusiastic, and we arranged a phone call for my next day off. I was so nervous before the call that I nearly canceled, but I forced myself to dial his number at the appointed time. I'll be honest, David said after pleasantries, I'm a landscaper, not a writer. I know what makes good plants, not good paragraphs. But I know good writing when I see it, and yours captures exactly the feeling I want my company to convey. We discussed his vision for the website, professionalism, and emphasis on creating outdoor spaces where families could connect. I took detailed notes, asking questions about his clients, services, and company history. I've never done a project this large, I admitted, determined to be transparent. But I'm confident I can deliver what you're looking for. I believe you can, he said simply. When can you start? We agreed on a timeline, 2 weeks, with half payment up front. Ended the call. I sat in stunned silence afterward, processing what had just happened. A real client, a real project, a real opportunity. That night, after my shift at the diner, I began working on David's website content. Words flowed easily as I imagined the gardens he created, the families enjoying outdoor spaces, the transformation of barren yards into vibrant retreats. For the first time in years, I lost track of time doing something I loved. When I finally glanced at the clock, it was past 3 a.m. Mom, why are you still up? I jumped, startled to find Jessica in the doorway, squinting sleepily at me. Just. Catching up on some things, I said, quickly minimizing the document. Whatever, she muttered, turning back toward her room. Don't oversleep for your shift tomorrow. As her door closed, I felt a twinge of guilt for my secrecy, but it was overshadowed by something stronger: pride, purpose, the first stirrings of a dream. I'd never dared to dream before. 6 months passed in a blur of double shifts and late nights. My days followed a grueling but purposeful rhythm: waitressing at Denny's for the breakfast rush, home to catch a few hours of sleep, an afternoon shift at the diner or cleaning houses, then writing into the early morning hours. David's website had been just the beginning. He'd referred me to other local business owners, each satisfied client leading to another. I'd created a simple portfolio website using a template and the skills Eleanor had patiently taught me. I even had business cards, plain but professional, that I cautiously distributed to clients. My content craft profile now showcased dozens of 5-star reviews. And I'd graduated from small assignments to regular work for several companies. My writing income had grown from a trickle to a steady stream, still not enough to quit my day jobs, but substantial enough to build a modest savings account for the first time in my adult life. All of this remained my secret. As far as Jessica knew, I was still just a waitress who occasionally cleaned houses and spent too much time on the computer at night. She never asked what I was working on, and I never volunteered the information. Our relationship had settled into a tense state. She was in her senior year now, focused on college applications and maintaining her perfect GPA. I was the background character in her life, the provider of meals, clean laundry, and a roof over her head. Not a confidant. Not someone whose opinion or approval she sought. It hurt, but I channeled that hurt into determination. Someday, I promised myself, she would see me differently. That day seemed far away as I sat at our kitchen table, reviewing the financial aid estimates that had arrived with Jessica's college acceptance letters. She'd done brilliantly, receiving offers from several prestigious universities, including her dream school, Northwestern. But even with partial scholarships and grants, the remaining costs were staggering. Tuition, room and board, books, travel, numbers blurred before my exhausted eyes. "Did you see?" Jessica burst into the apartment, waving an envelope. "Cornell, another acceptance. That's wonderful, honey," I said, genuinely proud despite my financial anxiety. "You've worked so hard." "It's their communications program, one of the best in the country." Her eyes shone with excitement I rarely saw directed at me. "Their journalism department is amazing." She chatted animatedly about the program, the campus, the opportunities. I listened with a smile frozen on my face, wondering how to tell her that Cornell, like Northwestern and the others, was financially out of reach. "Have you decided which offer you'll accept?" I asked when she paused for breath. Her expression shifted, enthusiasm fading to resignation. "Well, obviously I can't go to any of them. Not with these costs." She gestured at the papers spread across the table. "State college is fine, or community college for 2 years, then transfer. But Northwestern is your dream school," I said, "and you deserve to go." Jessica's laugh held a bitter edge. "Deserving doesn't pay tuition, Mom. We'll figure something out," I insisted. "There are additional scholarship opportunities, private loans, with what credit history, on a waitress's salary." Her words weren't cruel, just matter of fact, which somehow hurt more. "It's fine. I've always known this was how it would be." She retreated to her room, leaving me with the financial aid papers and a heaviness in my chest. That night, unable to sleep, I opened my laptop and checked my writing income for the past 6 months. I'd been saving most of it, vaguely planning to eventually quit one of my service jobs. The total surprised me. Not enough for 4 years at Northwestern, but a significant start. What if... The idea that formed seemed simultaneously obvious and impossible. Could my writing actually fund Jessica's education? Not right now, certainly. But if I expanded my client base, raised my rates, possibly hired help for the simpler projects... I opened a spreadsheet and began calculating what I would need to earn monthly to cover Jessica's tuition and expenses. The number was daunting but not entirely out of reach if I devoted myself fully to growing my business. I thought about my current clients, the consistently positive feedback, the increasing referrals. I thought about the more lucrative projects I'd turned down due to time constraints from my other jobs. By morning, I had the outline of a plan, risky, demanding, but possible. I would need to work harder than ever, sleep less than ever, stretch myself beyond what I thought possible. But for Jessica too, give her the opportunities I'd never had, to someday reveal to her that her mother was more than she thought I would. Do it. I just had no idea how dramatically our lives were about to change. I found Jessica crying at the kitchen table, clutching her Northwestern acceptance letter. She rarely cried, hadn't since she was 13, and decided tears were for children, so the sight stopped me cold. "Honey, what's wrong?" She looked up, quickly wiping her eyes. "Nothing, it's stupid." I sat beside her, noticing the laptop open to Northwestern's virtual tour. "It's not stupid if it matters to you. I got an email from my journalism teacher. she said after a moment. She wanted to know which school I'd chosen. When I told her probably state, she said, Jessica's voice cracked. She said I was wasting my potential, that Northwestern could open doors, state never could. My heart ached for her. Your teacher shouldn't have said that. But she's right, Jessica insisted. Northwestern's program is connected to actual news outlets in Chicago. They have internship placements with major publications. The alumni network alone, double quotes, she gestured helplessly. It's a completely different level of opportunity. I nodded, understanding all too well how different paths led to different futures. Hadn't my own life demonstrated that? But we both know it's impossible, she continued, resignation heavy in her voice. Even with loans, we'd never be able to. What if it wasn't impossible? I interrupted, the idea that had been growing for weeks suddenly impossible to contain. What if we could make it work? Jessica gave me a pitying look. Mom, be realistic. The financial aid package still leaves us short by thousands each semester. Unless you've got a secret trust fund you haven't told me about, there's no way. I could pick up more shifts, I suggested, knowing even as I said it that conventional employment would never bridge the gap. Or maybe it's fine, really, Jessica cut me off. I've accepted it. I don't know why I let Ms. Peterson get to me. She stood abruptly, gathering her laptop. I've got homework to finish. Jessica, wait, but she was already retreating to her room, shoulders slumped in a way that broke my heart. I sat alone at the kitchen table, thinking about all the times I'd seen that same defeated posture in the mirror, all the dreams I'd abandoned because they seemed impossible, all the times I'd settled for less because I didn't believe I deserved more. I didn't want that for my daughter. I didn't want her looking back at 18 as the year she started compromising, the way I had. I opened my laptop and pulled up my client list, my rates, my schedule. If I dropped my morning shift at Denny's, I could take on 3 more writing projects weekly. If I raised my rates by 15%, several clients had suggested was overdrive, could earn more for the same amount of work. The numbers still didn't add up to Northwestern tuition, but they were closer. My phone buzzed with a text from my supervisor at Denny's. Can you cover tomorrow morning? Susan called in sick again. I stared at the message, something shifting inside me. Every extra shift meant less time for writing. Every hour at the diner was an hour I couldn't spend building the business that might actually change our future. Texted back, sorry, can't make it tomorrow. My finger hovered over the send button. This small rebellion felt monumental. For 17 years, I'd never said no to extra work, never prioritized my own goals over immediate needs. I pressed send, then followed it with another message that surprised even me. Actually, I need to reduce my hours. Personal situation. Can we discuss? The response came quickly. Not enough hours to go around, as it is. If you can't maintain your current schedule, I'll have to let you go. I read the message twice, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment of choice. Security versus possibility. The known versus the unknown. Jessica's tear-streaked face flashed in my mind. My brilliant, driven daughter, settling for less because her mother couldn't provide more. I typed, I understand. Consider this my 2 weeks' notice. The moment I sent it, panic seized me. What had I done? How would we manage if my writing income didn't grow fast enough? Then, from Jessica's room, I heard a sound that solidified my resolve, muffled sobbing, the kind you bury in a pillow so no one will hear. I knew that sound. I'd made it myself, night after night in my youth, crying for lost opportunities, for dreams deferred, for a future that seemed to narrow with each passing year. No, I whispered fiercely, not for her, not if I can help it. That night, I worked until dawn, sending proposals to potential clients, updating my portfolio, researching higher-paying markets for my skills. I was terrified but determined. Something had to break. I had chosen what it would be, and it wouldn't be my daughter's future. You're doing what? Eleanor nearly spilled her coffee when I told her I'd quit my job at Denny's. We sat in the library's small break room, where our morning chats had become a ritual over the past year. Eleanor had moved from teacher to mentor to friend, one of the few people who knew about my writing work. I'm going all in on the writing, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. I've been turning down good projects because of my shifts at the diner. If I focus completely on writing, I can take on more clients, higher paying work. That's a big risk, Eleanor said carefully. Are you sure the timing is right? I explained about Jessica's college acceptances, the financial gap, my daughter's dreams. Eleanor nodded slowly. So this isn't just about your writing career, it's about Jessica's education. Both, I admitted. I want to build something sustainable, something that could eventually replace all my service jobs. But right now, the immediate goal is Northwestern tuition. You need to approach this systematically, Eleanor said, switching into the practical mode I'd come to rely on. If you're going to run a real business, you need to operate like one. Over the next 2 hours, she helped me draft a business plan. We discussed pricing strategies, time management, potential growth areas. Eleanor's brother-in-law was a small business accountant. She offered to introduce us to discuss tax implications and legal structures. You need a proper name, she said, as we wrapped up. Something professional that captures what you do. I'd been operating under my own name, but Eleanor was right. A business name would lend legitimacy, create distance between my personal and professional identities. WriteRight, I said, the name coming to me suddenly. Because I help businesses find the right words. Eleanor smiled. I like it. Simple, memorable, descriptive. The next week was a whirlwind. I met with Eleanor's brother-in-law Michael, who patiently explained the basics of business formation. For affordability, we settled on a sole proprietorship for now, with plans to consider an LLC. As the business grew, you'll need proper accounting, software, he advised, and start tracking all business expenses separately from personal ones. I nodded, taking detailed notes. The learning curve was steep, but exhilarating. For the first time, I was building something of my own, not just working in someone else's business. Michael helped me set up a business bank account and introduced me to Maria, a web designer who specialized in small business sites. I can't afford much, I warned her during our initial consultation. Maria studied my simple portfolio site with a professional eye. Let's make a deal. I need copy for my own website. Trade. I'll create a professional site for WriteRight. You write content for my design business. The arrangement was perfect. Maria got the compelling copy she needed, and I received a polished website that looked far more professional than anything I could have created myself, while continuing to fulfill existing client work. I devoted every spare moment to establishing WriteRight as a legitimate business. Business cards, a dedicated phone line, professional email address, proper contracts for clients. Each step was small, but together they transformed my freelance sideline into something substantial. When the first official WriteRight invoice was put directly into my new business account, I felt a surge of pride unlike anything I'd experienced in years. 3 weeks after quitting Denny's, I made a decision that both terrified and thrilled me. I gave notice at my other job. Now only the weekend house cleaning remained of my service work, providing a safety net of guaranteed income while I built the business. Jessica noticed the change in my schedule but seemed uninterested in the details. Administrative work, I told her when she briefly asked what I was doing on my laptop at all hours. It wasn't exactly a lie, I was administering my own business. The most surprising development came from David Chen, my first real client. Over coffee to discuss updates to his landscaping website, he casually mentioned a business networking group he belonged to. You should come as my guest, he suggested. Lots of small business owners who need exactly what you provide. One immediately thought of a dozen reasons to decline. My clothes weren't professional enough. I had no idea how to network. I'd be exposed as an imposter. But the voice that had been growing stronger inside me, the voice that believed in possibilities, overrode my fears. I'd love to, I heard myself say. Thank you. That night, I withdrew $100 from my precious savings to buy a simple but professional outfit for the event. As I hung it in my closet, I caught sight of myself in the mirror, still tired, still marked by years of struggle, but standing straighter, eyes brighter with purpose. Right, I whispered to my reflection. We can do this. The college decision deadline loomed, just 2 weeks away. Jessica had grown increasingly quiet, spending more time at school or friends' houses, avoiding conversations about her future. When the official financial aid package from Northwestern arrived, confirming the substantial gap between what was offered and what was needed, she placed it on the counter without comment. I knew she'd given up on her dream school. She'd even stopped wearing the Northwestern sweatshirt she'd bought herself as motivation during application season. Meanwhile, WriteRight was growing steadily. David's networking introduction had been invaluable, connecting me with local business owners who needed website content, marketing materials, and social media management. I'd secured 3 monthly retainer clients, providing a stable foundation of income. My rates had increased twice, with no pushback from clients who valued the quality of my work. It still wasn't enough for Northwestern, not quite, but combined with my savings from the past year, I could cover the first year's expenses. By the time second-year tuition came due, if business continued growing at its current rate, I'd be able to handle it. The question was how to tell Jessica. She'd never accept financial help she perceived as sacrificial, and she certainly wouldn't believe my writing business could sustain her education when she didn't even know it existed. I agonized over the decision for days. The ethical implications of deception, even well-intentioned, weighed heavily. But the thought of Jessica settling for less than she'd earned, less than she deserved, weighed even more heavily. The solution came to me during a late-night writing session. What if Jessica believed she'd received a scholarship? An anonymous donor, perhaps, who wanted to support promising journalism students. The idea felt simultaneously brilliant and terrible. A lie of this magnitude, sustained for 4 years, would have consequences. But watching my daughter's dreams wither before they could bloom also had consequences. I spent an entire night researching private scholarships, studying their language and presentation, then carefully crafting a letter on high-quality paper I'd purchased for client proposals. Dear Ms. Chen, it began. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as the recipient of the Future Journalists Foundation Scholarship, a private funding initiative supporting promising students entering the field of journalism. The letter explained that the scholarship would cover the gap between Northwestern's financial aid package and the total cost of attendance. It included contact information, an email address, and phone number I'd created specifically for this purpose, and a plausible explanation for the anonymous nature of the funding. I read it a dozen times, checking for inconsistencies or red flags. Then, heart pounding, I placed it in an envelope, addressed it professionally, added a real stamp, and quietly slipped it into our own mailbox. The next day, I made sure to arrive home after Jessica, giving her time to collect the mail as she usually did. When I entered the apartment, she was standing in the kitchen, the opened envelope in her hands, her expression stunned. "Mom," she whispered, looking up, "I got a scholarship. A full scholarship." I manufactured surprise, examining the letter, with what I hoped was appropriate amazement. "This is incredible. How did this happen?" "I don't know," Jessica said, her voice trembling with excitement. "It says my journalism teacher nominated me, but she never mentioned it. It's a private foundation supporting future journalists." Her eyes filled with tears. "I can go to Northwestern. I can actually go." The joy on her face made the deception simultaneously more painful and more justified. She threw her arms around me, the first real hug she'd initiated in years. I held her tightly, my own eyes wet. "I'm so proud of you," I said, the one completely truthful statement in our exchange. "You've earned this." "I have to call Dad," she said, pulling away. "And Grandma, and everyone." As she rushed to her room, phone already in hand, I stood alone in the kitchen, the fraudulent letter on the counter between us. What had I done? Created a beautiful lie that would make my daughter's dreams possible, or built a house of cards that would eventually collapse, potentially destroying her trust in me forever? That night, after Jessica had called everyone she knew with her news, after she'd fallen asleep with the Northwestern acceptance package beside her bed, I sat at my computer and created a detailed spreadsheet. Every semester's tuition, room and board, estimated books and expenses, all mapped against projected income from WriteRight with conservative growth estimates. The numbers were tight but feasible, especially if I continued living frugally and reinvesting in the business to accelerate its growth. I set up automatic transfers from my business account to a dedicated savings account for Northwestern expenses, scheduling them to align with tuition due dates. As I closed the spreadsheet, I made a silent promise to Jessica and to myself. Someday, when she was established in her own career, when she was strong enough to handle the truth, I would tell her everything. How her mockery had sparked transformation. How her dreams had fueled my determination. How I'd built a business that made her education possible. Until then, I would maintain the fiction of the scholarship, working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure it remained a functional reality, if not a technical truth. For the first time in years, Jessica went to bed happy about her future. For the first time in years, So did I, despite the weight of deception I now carried. The apartment felt painfully empty after Jessica left for Northwestern. I stood in her bedroom doorway, looking at the stripped bed, the empty desk, the few posters she'd left behind, too childish for college life. It's just for a few months, I reminded myself. She'll be home for Thanksgiving. But the silence pressed in, a reminder of how my life had been defined by motherhood for 18 years. Now, without Jessica's daily presence, what was I? A business owner, I realized with a small start of surprise. That's what I was now. With Jessica gone, I threw myself completely into growing right. I converted her bedroom into a proper home office, investing in a better desk, an ergonomic chair, and a larger monitor. I expanded my working hours, no longer needing to maintain the pretense of conventional jobs. I quit my last service position weekend house cleaning and focused entirely on building my client base. The financial risk was substantial, but necessary. Northwestern's first tuition payment had nearly emptied my savings. To fund the next semester, WriteRight needed to grow significantly. And grow it did. Without the distraction of other jobs, I could fully invest in my business. I took online courses in digital marketing, search engine optimization, and business development. I hired a virtual assistant to handle administrative tasks, freeing more of my time for writing and client acquisition. Most importantly, I specialized. Rather than taking any writing project available, I focused on industries where I'd already proven successful: landscaping and home services, local retail, professional services like accounting and law. I developed expertise in these niches, allowing me to command higher rates for specialized knowledge. The isolation was difficult. Long hours alone in the apartment, weeks without meaningful in-person interaction beyond brief client meetings. I missed Jessica with a physical ache, even our tense, distant relationship better than this complete separation. We spoke weekly, her calls full of excitement about classes, new friends, campus activities. She never mentioned finances, secure in her belief that the mysterious scholarship covered everything. I maintained the fiction carefully, creating fake scholarship renewal forms she needed to complete each semester, sending official-looking confirmation emails from the foundation's address. Each deception added to my burden of guilt, but seeing her thrive, her voice, animated in a way I'd rarely heard before, her horizons expanding daily, made it bearable. Meanwhile, my own world shrank to a punishing routine: wake, work, sleep, repeat. I rarely left the apartment except for client meetings and necessary errands. I cut every possible expense, living on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, canceling subscriptions, shopping only at thrift stores. My health suffered. Headaches from eye strain, backaches from hunching over the computer, weight loss from skip meals when deadlines loomed. Eleanor noticed during our now monthly coffee dates, her concern evident. "You're working too hard," she said, studying my face. "This pace isn't sustainable. It's temporary," I insisted. "Just until the business is more established." But we both knew the truth. This wasn't temporary. It was a 4-year commitment, at minimum, a marathon I was running at sprint pace. The first tuition check for Jessica's second semester cleared my account 3 days before Christmas. I stared at the bank confirmation, equal parts pride and terror. I'd done it, funded nearly a full year at Northwestern through my own business. But at what cost? My reflection in the computer screen showed a stranger, hollow-cheeked, dark circles under her eyes, premature lines etched by stress and sacrifice. Worth it, I told myself fiercely. All of it worth it for Jessica. That night, I fell asleep at my desk, too exhausted even to make it to bed. Dreams filled with deadline pressures and dwindling bank accounts. That when Jessica came home for winter break, she hugged me tightly, then drew back with a frown. "Mom, you look terrible. Are you sick?" I smiled, touching her face. "Just missing you, honey, just missing you." 2 years into Jessica's college education, WriteRight reached a turning point. What had begun as a desperate means to fund my daughter's tuition had evolved into a thriving business with a reputation for exceptional quality and reliability. I had 5 full-time writers on contract now, each specializing in different industries. We served clients ranging from local businesses to mid-sized corporations. With a growing portfolio of work that generated steady, significant income, my own role had shifted from doing all the writing myself to managing the team, handling client relationships, and focusing on the most challenging or high-value projects. The change had been necessary. The business had grown beyond what I could manage alone, but also strategic, allowing me to leverage my time more effectively. The financial picture had stabilized. Jessica's tuition payments were automatically transferred each semester, with enough buffer that I no longer panicked about making deadlines. I'd even begun rebuilding my personal savings, a small cushion against future uncertainties. Most significantly, I'd moved us from our cramped apartment to a modest but comfortable two-bedroom condo in a better neighborhood. I explained the upgrade to Jessica as a good deal I'd found through a client's real estate connections. The truth was simpler. I could finally afford a better place. Nice neighborhood, Jessica commented during her summer break, looking around the tree-lined street with approval. How are you affording this on restaurant wages? I've moved into management, I said. The practiced lie coming easily now. Better hours, better pay. She nodded, accepting this without question. In her mind, I was still the same struggling single mother, just slightly more comfortable now. The idea that I might have transformed completely while she was away never seemed to occur to her. I maintained careful boundaries between my personal and professional lives when Jessica visited. I took vacation from WriteRight during her breaks, scheduling team meetings 4 times she was out with friends. I changed into waitress-appropriate clothes before she came home, hiding business attire in the back of my closet. The deception had become second nature, a parallel life I slipped in and out of with practiced ease. Sometimes I barely recognized myself, the confident business owner in professional clothes during video calls with clients, the hesitant single mother in casual wear when Jessica was around. The turning point came unexpectedly. Through an email from Entrepreneur magazine, we're featuring women-owned small businesses that have shown exceptional growth in challenging economic environments. The message began, WriteRight has been nominated for our annual Rising Stars profile. I stared at the screen, stunned. Someone had nominated my business for a national feature. The email requested an interview, professional photos, and background information for a 2-page spread. My first instinct was to decline. The exposure would make maintaining my secret nearly impossible. If the article included personal details, Jessica might see it. If it appeared online, a simple search for my name would reveal everything. But another part of me, the part that had been silenced for too long, desperately wanted recognition. After years of invisibility, of being overlooked and underestimated, here was validation on a national scale. I negotiated a compromise with the editor. They could feature the business with minimal personal details, focusing on the services and growth rather than my background story. The photos would be professional but not prominently featuring my face. No mention of family circumstances or education. The article appeared 3 months later, while Jessica was deep in her junior year, fall semester. The magazine arrived in my mailbox. My business highlighted exactly as agreed, professional, impressive, but with enough privacy maintained that casual readers wouldn't connect it to me personally. I traced the words with my finger, seeing my journey mapped in black and white. WriteRight has grown from a solo operation to a team of 7 in just under 3 years, with revenue growth exceeding 300% annually. For the first time since Jessica left for college, I allowed myself a moment of pure, uncomplicated pride, not just in what I'd accomplished for her, but in what I'd built for myself. That night, I didn't work late as usual. Instead, I poured a glass of wine, ran a bath, and began to imagine a future where I wouldn't need to hide my success, where my daughter might actually see me, truly see me, for who I had become. Jessica's winter break, during her junior year, nearly unraveled everything. She arrived home unexpectedly a day early, texting only an hour before her arrival. Finished my last exam early. On the train now, see you soon. I had been in the middle of a video call with our newest corporate client, wearing a tailored blazer, hair and makeup professionally done. My home office, formerly Jessica's bedroom, was set up for business, with dual monitors, professional lighting, and WriteRight branding visible on the wall behind me. I ended the call abruptly, apologizing for a family emergency, then frantically began transforming both myself and the apartment. I changed into casual clothes, removed the blazer and minimal makeup, pulled my hair into the messy ponytail I typically wore at home. I closed the office door, something I never did when alone, and cleared away business papers from the kitchen table. I had just finished when Jessica's key turned in the lock. "Mom, I'm home." We hugged, exchanged the usual pleasantries about her trip and final exams. Everything seemed normal until later that afternoon, when Jessica needed to print a document for a job application. "Can I use your printer? Mine's out of ink." "Of course," I said automatically, then froze as she headed toward my closed office door. "Wait, let me get it set up for you." Too late. She had already opened the door and stood staring at the professional setup within. "Whoa," she said, turning back to me with wide eyes. "What's all this?" I forced a casual laugh. "Oh, it's for that administrative work I told you about. The company set me up to work remotely." She walked further into the room, taking in the details. "This looks serious. What company did you say it was?" "Just a local business services firm," I said vaguely. "I handle their client communications." Jessica nodded slowly, but her expression remained skeptical. She approached my desk, where I'd left a stack of client contracts in my rush to prepare for her arrival. "WriteRight." She read from the header. "What's that?" "The company I work for," I said, moving quickly to gather the papers. "Their administrative branch." She picked up one of my business cards, which I'd failed to clear away. "Melanie Chen, founder and CEO," she read aloud, then looked up at me with confusion. "Mom, what is this? You're a waitress in management, not a CEO." My heart raced. The carefully constructed parallel lives were colliding, and I had no prepared explanation. I considered continuing the lie, claiming the cards were a joke or a misprint, but the mounting deception suddenly felt overwhelming. "It's complicated," I said finally. "Can we talk about this later?" "I thought you wanted to print something." Jessica studied me for another long moment, then slowly set down the business card. "Yeah, sure, later." But later never came. Jessica spent the evening texting friends, then announced she was meeting some of them for a late movie. The next day she was busy with holiday shopping. When she was home, she avoided the topic entirely, though I occasionally caught her watching me with a puzzled expression. On the third day of her visit, I found her using my laptop at the kitchen table. While I was in the shower, I felt a surge of panic. My business email was likely still open, possibly client files as well. "Find what you needed?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I emerged from the bathroom. "Just checking movie times," she said, closing the laptop quickly, too quickly. That afternoon, she announced she was going to spend a few days with her father. "He's in town for a business thing." Asked if I wanted to hang out. It was plausible Jessica's father occasionally reached out for brief visits. The timing felt suspect. Was she running from the questions my office had raised, or running to her father for answers? After she left, I checked my laptop's browser history. She had searched WriteRight copywriting services and visited our company website. She had opened several client files from my desktop. And most tellingly, she had searched Melanie Chen, entrepreneur. Had she found the magazine article? The business listings? How much did she now know? I spent the next 3 days in a state of nervous anticipation, waiting for the confrontation that never came. When Jessica returned, she was perfectly pleasant, but somewhat distant, never mentioning what she might have discovered. As she packed to return to school, I hovered in her doorway, wanting to explain, to confess everything, but finding no opening in her careful politeness. "Jessica," I finally began, "about my office." "It's fine, Mom," she interrupted, not meeting my eyes. "You don't have to explain. We all have our secrets, right?" She zipped her suitcase with finality, effectively closing the conversation along with it. I drove her to the train station the next morning, our goodbye hug slightly stiffer than usual. As I watched her board, I wondered if the fragile foundation of our relationship had just developed irreparable cracks, and I wondered how much longer the scholarship lie could possibly hold. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, from an address I didn't recognize, Regional Excellence at chamberofcommerce.org. "Congratulations. WriteRight has been selected as Small Business of the Year by the Regional Chamber of Commerce. You are invited to accept this award at our annual gala." I read the message twice, confirming it wasn't spam. WriteRight had been nominated by several clients, apparently, and selected from dozens of businesses across 3 counties. The recognition was thrilling validation of everything I'd built over the past 3 years. But the gala presentation created a dilemma. It was scheduled during Parents' Weekend at Northwestern, when I was supposed to be visiting Jessica, called Eleanor, who had become my closest confidant. "That's wonderful news," she exclaimed when I told her about the award. "But terrible timing. I can't miss Parents' Weekend," I said. "Jessica's expecting me." Could you explain the situation to her? Tell her about the business. I hesitated. After that weird visit during winter break, I don't know. Something's off between us. She found some business materials but never directly asked about them. It's like we're both pretending nothing happened. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity to come clean, Eleanor suggested gently. She's an adult now, in her junior year. The truth would be a shock, but she might understand better than you think. I considered it. 3 years of deception weighed heavily, but the thought of revealing everything terrified me. What if Jessica felt betrayed rather than impressed? What if she resented that I'd lied about the scholarship? I need to think about it, I said finally. I declined the award with genuine regret, explaining the scheduling conflict. The chamber was disappointed but understanding, offering to mail the plaque and mention WriteRight prominently in their newsletter. 2 weeks later, I flew to Chicago for Parents' Weekend. Jessica met me at the airport, looking more adult and self-possessed than ever, in a Northwestern sweatshirt and professional-looking slacks. I thought we'd have dinner with some friends and their parents tonight, she said as we drove to campus. My roommate Lily and my journalism study group, if that's okay. Of course, I agreed, though group settings always heightened my self-consciousness about being the least educated, least accomplished parent present. The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place I'd never have entered 3 years ago. Parents around the table included a surgeon, a professor, a corporate attorney, and a financial analyst. I prepared my usual vague answers about working in hospitality management. Conversation flowed around current events, campus activities, and career aspirations. Jessica was animated, confidently discussing her internship at the college newspaper and plans for a summer position at a digital media startup. What about you, Miss Chun? Lily's father asked politely. What line of work are you in? Before I could answer, Jessica interjected. My mom's in restaurant management. She's worked her way up from waitressing to running operations. I nodded, the familiar lie sitting uncomfortably. Had I imagined a slight edge in Jessica's voice? That's impressive, Lily's father said sincerely. The hospitality industry requires remarkable people skills and organizational talent. Mom's really good with people, Jessica agreed, a strange expression crossing her face. She's always been a hard worker. Was that pride in her voice, or something else? I couldn't tell. Later, during a campus tour, Jessica pointed out the journalism building where she spent most of her time. We're studying business communications this semester. Case studies of effective corporate messaging. She paused, giving me a sidelong glance. My professor assigned this amazing case study about a copywriting firm that grew 300% annually for 3 straight years, started by a woman with no formal education who built it from nothing. My heart stopped. That sounds interesting. Very, Jessica agreed, still watching me. The company was called WriteRight. Isn't that a clever name? She knew. The realization hit me with absolute certainty. She'd found more than just business cards during her visit. Perhaps the magazine article, perhaps industry recognition online. Jessica, I began, suddenly desperate to explain. Our dorm is this way, she interrupted, walking ahead briskly. I want to show you the new study lounge. The moment had passed, but something had fundamentally shifted. The careful distance between us now felt charged with unspoken questions, with revelations hovering just below the surface. That night, alone in my hotel room, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what Jessica really thought of me, the mother she'd dismissed as technologically inept, who had secretly built a thriving digital business, the woman she'd mocked for typing like a grandma with arthritis, now running a company based entirely on written communication. I wondered if she felt betrayed by the deception, or impressed by the achievement. I wondered if she'd connected the dots to her scholarship. Most of all, I wondered if it was finally time to tell her everything. I should have known the fragile equilibrium wouldn't last. 3 weeks after Parents' Weekend, Jessica called on a Sunday evening, her voice unusually formal. Mom, I need to talk to you about something for my advanced business communications class. Of course, honey, what's up? We're doing a project on successful female entrepreneurs who built businesses without traditional advantages. I'm focusing on women without college degrees who created significant companies. My throat tightened. That sounds interesting. I've chosen WriteRight as my case study. She paused, the silence heavy with implication. Do you know anything about it? This was at the moment of truth, arrived without warning on a routine Sunday call. I considered continuing the charade, pretending ignorance, but exhaustion swept over me. 3 years of deception had taken their toll. Yes, I said simply. I know about WriteRight. Another pause. Professor Jenkins says it's an extraordinary story. A woman who started with nothing but natural writing talent built a 6-figure business in under 3 years. I waited, unsure what to say. The founder has the same name as you, Jessica continued. Melanie Chen. Odd coincidence, isn't it? I closed my eyes, gathering courage. It's not a coincidence, Jessica. So you do know her. The carefully constructed neutrality in her voice was cracking. I am her, I said quietly. WriteRight is my company. The silence stretched for so long. I wondered if we'd been disconnected. Why did you lie? She finally asked, her voice small and hurt. Why would you hide something like that? It's complicated, I began. Don't, she interrupted. Don't say it's complicated. I'm not a child anymore. I deserve the truth. She was right. After years of protection and deception, I owed her honesty. I started WriteRight after you mocked my typing. I said, the words tumbling out, that night, when you laughed at me, recorded me typing with one finger at a time. It broke something in me, but it also sparked something. Mom, please, let me finish. I learned to type properly, then to use computers effectively. I discovered I had a talent for writing that could actually earn money. It started small, just a side job for extra income, but it grew quickly. Buff, why hide it? Were you embarrassed? The question stung. No, Jess, I was building it for you. For me. What does that mean? I took a deep breath. When you got into Northwestern but couldn't afford to go, I couldn't bear to see you settle for less than you deserved. WriteRight was growing, and I realized if I worked hard enough, focused completely on building the business, I might be able to afford your tuition. Silence again. Then, the scholarship. There is no scholarship, is there? No, I admitted. I created that fiction so you wouldn't worry about money, wouldn't feel guilty about the cost. Every semester, I've transferred the tuition payments from my business account. You've been paying my entire Northwestern education. Through your writing business? Her voice was incredulous. Yes, but you let me believe, you let me think. She couldn't seem to finish the thought. I'm sorry for the deception, I said, but I'm not sorry for making your dream school possible. I don't even know what to say, Jessica whispered. I need to process this. I understand. Take all the time you need. I have to go, she said abruptly. I single quotes, LL, ... I'll call you later. The line went dead, leaving me alone with the aftermath of a revelation 3 years in the making. I had finally told the truth, but instead of relief, I felt only a hollow ache. Had I irreparably damaged our relationship? Had the years of deception, however well-intentioned, destroyed Jessica's trust completely? I waited for her to call back. That night, then the next day, then the next. Silence stretched into a week, then 2. I sent texts that received one-word responses, left voicemails that went unreturned. The wall between us, once built of secrets, was now constructed of hurt and betrayal, and I had no idea how to tear it down. The Regional Business Excellence Awards ceremony took place on a rainy Thursday evening in April, nearly a month after my revelatory phone call with Jessica. Despite her continued silence, I had decided to attend, no longer willing to hide my accomplishments. The event was held at the downtown Marriott, the ballroom filled with local business owners and corporate representatives. I felt out of place in my simple black dress, the most expensive I owned, but still modest compared to the designer outfits around me. Eleanor had come as my guest, her steady presence a comfort as we found our table near the front. You look wonderful, she assured me, squeezing my hand, and you absolutely deserve to be here. I nodded, trying to believe it. WriteRight had been nominated in 2 categories, Fastest Growing Small Business and Excellence in Professional Services. The company's success was undeniable, yet I still struggled to fully claim it as my own. Our next category is Fastest Growing Small Business, the MC announced. The nominees are ... As he read the names, including WriteRight, I scanned the room out of nervous habitant froze. In the back, barely visible in the dim lighting, sat Jessica. My daughter was here, at the awards ceremony, watching, and the winner is, Write, Copywriting Services. Eleanor nudged me gently. That's you. Go. In a daze, I made my way to the stage, accepted the elegant glass trophy, and turned to face the audience. The bright lights made it impossible to see Jessica now, but knowing she was there changed everything. Thank you for this recognition. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. 4 years ago, I was a waitress who could barely type. Today, I lead a team of talented writers serving clients across the country. I paused, gathering courage for what I needed to say next. I started WriteRight for 2 reasons. First, because I discovered my words had value, that the ability to express ideas clearly is a genuine skill worth paying for. And second, because my daughter deserved opportunities I never had. My voice caught slightly. She once mocked my huntampek typing. That painful moment became the catalyst for transformation. I learned to type properly, then to write professionally, then to build a business that now puts her through an education I couldn't afford for myself. I looked toward where I'd seen Jessica. Everything I've built, I built first for her, then for myself. Thank you for recognizing that journey. The applause was warm as I returned to my seat, hands shaking. Eleanor hugged me tightly. That was beautiful, she whispered, and brave. Later that evening, WriteRight won the second category as well. This time, I kept my acceptance brief, too emotionally drained for another speech. As the ceremony concluded, I scanned the room for Jessica, but couldn't find her. Had she left? Had I imagined her presence? Eleanor and I were collecting our coats when a voice behind me said, "Congratulations, Mom." I turned to find Jessica standing there, elegant in a navy dress I'd never seen before, her expression unreadable. "You came," I said softly. "My professor encouraged it, said watching the founder of my case study receive an award was a rare opportunity." Her voice was carefully neutral. She was right. Eleanor tactfully excused herself, leaving us alone. "Your speech," Jessica began, then stopped. "You said I mocked your typing." "You did," I confirmed gently. "And that's why you started all this. Because I was cruel to you." I considered her question. "Not exactly. Your mockery was the spark, but the fuel was already there, my desire to give you better opportunities, to be someone you could respect." Jessica's composure cracked slightly. "I recorded you on my phone. I showed my friends. I called you pathetic. You were 17, I said. Teenagers say hurtful things. But you turned it into ... this." She gestured at the award in my hand. "While I was busy looking down on you, you were building something extraordinary." Her eyes filled with tears. "And paying for my education, which I never even thanked you for because I didn't know." I reached for her hand hesitantly. "Jessica, I have to go," she interrupted, pulling away. "My train back to campus leaves soon. I just ... I needed to see this for myself." Before I could respond, she turned and walked quickly toward the exit, leaving me with 2 awards and a heart full of questions about whether this unexpected appearance represented reconciliation or merely confirmation of what she'd discovered. For 2 weeks after the awards ceremony, Jessica and I existed in a strange limbo, occasional texts, brief calls about practical matters, but nothing substantial. She was finishing her junior year, busy with finals and securing a summer internship. At least, that's what I told myself to explain her continued emotional distance. Then, unexpectedly, an email appeared in my personal account from Jessica Chen. Subject: "I need to understand, Mom. I'm trying to process everything I've learned about you, WriteRight, and my scholarship. There's so much I don't understand, so many questions. Rather than asking them piecemeal, I've written everything down. I need complete honesty from you now. No more protecting me, no more omissions. I've attached a document with my questions. Please answer them fully. I deserve the whole truth." Jessica opened the attachment with trembling hands. The document was titled "What I Need to Know" and contained a numbered list of questions, meticulously organized. "When exactly did you start WriteRight? Was it really because of my mockery? How did you learn the skills needed? Who helped you? Why create the fake scholarship? Why not just tell me the truth? How much has my education actually cost you? Have you been sacrificing your own needs? Did you ever resent me for the financial burden, for my behavior? Why did you maintain the waitress fiction even as the business grew? What do you want from me now? Gratitude? Forgiveness? What?" The directness of the questions was painful but fair. Jessica deserved answers, complete, honest answers without self-justification or evasion. I spent the entire day composing my response, writing and rewriting to ensure absolute clarity and truth. "No more hiding, no more protective lies," I explained. Everything: the night of her mockery, the early mornings at the library, Eleanor's mentorship, the first clients, the growing business. I detailed the fake scholarship creation, my fears she would reject help she perceived as sacrificial, my determination to give her every opportunity regardless of cost. I included spreadsheets showing exactly what her education had cost and how WriteRight had grown to accommodate it. I admitted the physical toll of those early years, the exhaustion, weight loss, health issues I'd hidden from her. To her question about resentment, I wrote, I never resented you for the financial burden. Not once. I chose this path willingly, even joyfully. But yes, I sometimes resented your dismissal of me, your assumption that I was nothing more than a struggling waitress with no potential or ambition. That hurt deeply. Yet I maintained the fiction because I feared losing your respect entirely if you knew I was funding your education. I worried you'd feel obligated, burdened by gratitude, or, worst of all, that you'd insist on leaving Northwestern to save me money. Finally, to her last question, what do I want from you now? Nothing you don't freely wish to give. Not gratitude, I didn't do this for thanks. Not forgiveness, though I regret the deception. I would make the same choice again, to secure your future. What I want, what I've always wanted, is for you to have every opportunity to build the life you desire. And perhaps, someday, for you to see Mirielli, see me for who I am, and what I'm capable of. I sent the email with all attachments, then waited, emotionally drained, but somehow lighter for having finally shared the complete truth. Days passed without response. I tried not to check my email obsessively, to focus on work, to maintain normal routines. WriteRight continued to thrive, demanding my attention even as my personal life remained in suspension. A week later, my doorbell rang on Saturday morning. I opened it to find Jessica standing there, weekend bag in hand, eyes red-rimmed from what appeared to be a sleepless night. I got on the first train this morning, she said, voice ragged. I COULDN, single quotes T. After reading everything I needed to see you in person. I stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in. She entered, set down her bag, then turned to face me. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other, mother and daughter, each seeing the other clearly, perhaps for the first time. I'm so sorry, she whispered. For what? For everything. For not seeing you, for taking you for granted, for being so cruel about your typing when you were working so hard for us. Her words released something long held tight within me. Tears filled my eyes as I reached for her, and she stepped into my embrace, both of us crying now. I'm sorry too, I murmured into her hair. For the lies, for not trusting you with the truth. Can we start over? She asked, pulling back to look at me. Really talk to each other this time? Yes, I said. I'd like that very much. Northwestern's campus bloomed with spring flowers on Jessica's graduation day. The ceremony would take place on the main lawn, chairs arranged in neat rows, the stage adorned with the university's purple and white colors. Parents and families gathered early, claiming the best viewing spots for the processional. I arrived wearing a new dress purchased specifically for the occasion, not extravagant, but well-made and flattering. My hair was professionally styled, my makeup subtle but polished. I looked like what I had become, a successful business owner, attending her daughter's college graduation. No more pretending, no more hiding. This milestone would be celebrated with complete honesty. The past year had been one of healing and rediscovery between Jessica and me. After our tearful reconciliation, we had begun rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of truth. Weekly video calls, text conversations that ranged from mundane updates to profound reflections, occasional visits when schedules allowed. Jessica had completed her case study on WriteRight, interviewing me formally about the business journey. She'd asked questions I never expected, not just about growth metrics and business strategy, but about the emotional aspects of entrepreneurship, about how writing had always been my hidden passion, about what it felt like to finally use my natural talents after years of suppression. You're actually amazing at this, she'd said during one interview session, genuine admiration in her voice. I never knew you had all this in you. I didn't know either, I'd admitted. Not until I had to find out. Her professor had awarded the case study the highest grade in the class, with a note suggesting it was publication-worthy. Jessica had been both proud and reflective about the recognition. It's weird, she'd told me. I'm getting praised for documenting your achievements. There's something ironic about that. Now, watching her cross the stage to receive her journalism degree, I felt a complex swirl of emotions: pride in her accomplishments, satisfaction in having made them possible, gratitude for our renewed connection. After the ceremony, we navigated through crowds of celebrating families to find each other. Jessica looked radiant in her cap and gown, diploma case clutched tightly in one hand. "You did it," I said, embracing her. "I'm so proud of you." "We did it," she corrected, hugging me back. "I wouldn't be here without you, literally." She introduced me to passing professors and friends without hesitation or embarrassment. "This is my mom, Melanie Chen. She owns WriteRight, the copywriting company I did my case study on." The pride in her voice when she spoke about me, about my business, my work, was something I'd once thought impossible. The daughter who had mocked my typing now bragged about my writing company to her journalism professors. Later, at the small celebration dinner I'd arranged at a restaurant near campus, Jessica raised her glass in a toast. "To my mom," she said, voice steady but eyes bright with emotion, "who taught me that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. That words have power, and that sometimes the greatest achievements grow from the deepest hurts. Thank you for Northwestern, but more importantly, thank you for showing me what determination looks like." I blinked back tears, touched beyond words by her acknowledgement. "And," she added with a small smile, "I promise I'll never make fun of anyone's typing again." We both laughed, the painful memory now transformed into something we could share, even joke about the catalyst that had changed both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. As we walked back to our hotel that evening, Jessica linked her arm through mine. "So what's next for WriteRight? Any big plans?" "Actually, yes," I replied. "We're expanding into content strategy consulting for larger corporations. I've hired 2 new senior writers and a project manager. The company's growing faster than I ever expected." "That's amazing, Mom. What about you? Have you decided which job offer you're taking?" She hesitated. "I've been thinking. I know the Chicago Tribune position is prestigious, but I'm actually more interested in business communication, specifically how companies tell their stories." I glanced at her, surprised. "That's quite different from investigative journalism." "No," she nodded, "but working on your case study made me realize how powerful business narratives can be. How the right words can transform perception and create opportunities." We stopped walking, and I turned to face her directly. "Jessica, are you saying what I think you're saying?" She smiled, suddenly looking both grown-up and vulnerable. "Would WriteRight possibly have a position for a journalism graduate with excellent writing skills and a keen interest in business communication?" My heart filled with unexpected joy. "I think we might be able to arrange something. And that's why personal narrative is the most powerful tool in modern marketing," I concluded, looking out at the audience of business owners and entrepreneurs. "Your company's story, authentic, vulnerable, distinctive, creates connection. That data alone never can." The applause was enthusiastic as I stepped away from the podium. 5 years after founding WriteRight, I had become a sought-after speaker on business communication and entrepreneurship. This particular event, the Women's Business Leadership Conference, was especially meaningful. Focused on female entrepreneurs who had overcome significant obstacles. From the side of the stage, Jessica gave me a thumbs up. At 27, she had grown into a poised, confident professional. After starting as a junior writer at WriteRight, she had quickly demonstrated exceptional talent for client relations and strategic planning. Now, as our director of brand strategy, she managed our largest accounts and mentored new team members. Working together had its challenges initially. We had to establish clear boundaries between our personal and professional relationships, learn to disagree constructively, find the balance between mother-daughter and employer-employee dynamics. But the rewards far outweighed the difficulties. We made a formidable team, complementing each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses. Jessica's journalism training brought fresh perspective to our approach, while my years of practical experience grounded her creative ideas in business reality. Most precious of all was the deep mutual respect that had developed between us. The daughter who once saw me as a technological dinosaur now sought my input on complex projects. The mother who once hid her achievements now openly celebrated them alongside her daughter. After the conference session, we shared a late lunch at a quiet cafe nearby. "Great presentation," Jessica said. "I especially liked the part about turning points, how moments of humiliation can become catalysts for growth." I smiled, recognizing my own story in the generalized advice I'd shared. Speaking from experience, "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Not the business, but keeping it secret from me for so long." I considered the question carefully. I regret the distance it created between us. The years we lost to pretense and misunderstanding. But, given what I knew then, given who we both were then, I made the best decision I could. She nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, how people make decisions based on who they are at a specific moment, with the information they have available. Something particular on your mind? Jessica twisted her napkin, nervously. Actually, yes. I've been working on a book proposal, a memoir, of sorts. A memoir, I echoed, surprised. About what? About us, she said simply. About how you built a copywriting empire to pay my tuition after I mocked your typing. About transformation and redemption and second chances. I sat back, stunned. You want to write about that? It's an amazing story, Mom. A high school dropout single mother who secretly builds a successful business to fund her daughter's education. All sparked by that daughter's cruel mockery, the ultimate entrepreneurial revenge story. Except it's not about revenge at all, it's about love and determination and refusing to be defined by limitations. Her eyes shone with conviction. People need to hear this story. Young women need to hear it. Single mothers need to hear it. Anyone who's ever been underestimated needs to hear it. I felt a complex mix of emotions: pride in Jessica's passion, vulnerability at the thought of our private story becoming public, uncertainty about revisiting painful memories. I would never publish it without your full approval, she added quickly. Every word would be subject to your review, and we would write it together, your perspective and mine, intertwined. Together, I repeated, considering the idea. Our story told from both sides, the struggling mother and the privileged daughter, each transformed by the same pivotal moment. Jessica reached across the table to take my hand. Think about it, no pressure. Later that evening, in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and found myself creating a new document. At the top, I typed, "My daughter mocked my typing, so I built a copywriting empire that pays her tuition." The words looked strange, yet perfect on the screen. Our story, distilled to its essence. I began to write, the words flowing easily. Hi everyone. I'm Melanie, 43, from a small town outside of Boston. What I'm about to share isn't easy, but it's my truth, how a single moment of humiliation became the turning point of my life. I hope it inspires you. An hour later, I called Jessica's room. I'm in, I said when she answered. Let's write our story together. Her joyful response echoed my own feelings exactly. Full circle, Mom. We've come full circle. From a moment of mockery to a memoir of redemption. From hunt and peck typing to a thriving writing business. From a fractured relationship to a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine understanding. Full circle indeed, but with a view from the summit rather than the valley. And what a beautiful view it was.